Alright guys, now we're going to work on the Kwikset smart lock. It's pretty cool because you don't have to take it off the door to do anything. It can rekey while still on the doorway. And it literally takes seconds. If you have a house full of these, you're going to have a pretty good day as long as they have the keys to them. So what indicates it being a Kwikset smart lock is that tiny notch right there, right next to the keyway. If you see that, that means it's a Kwikset smart lock. And how we deal with these is we take the existing key and we turn it 90 degrees. And we take the quick reset tool, it looks like this, and we put it right in that little hole. And you're going to hear a click. Hopefully you heard that. And we're going to remove the old key. And we're going to slide the new key in there. We don't want to turn it until the new key is completely in there. Put the new key in, and we're going to cycle the key. You should only have to do it once. I do it 3 or 4 times just to be on the safe side. Make sure it takes. And that is it. We have rekeyed this lock. So like I said, if they have the keys to these, it's going to be a pretty good day. You'll be out of there in less than 5 minutes. Now, if they don't have the keys, there's a couple other options that we're going to start discussing now that get a little more difficult. Alright guys, now we're going to rekey a smart lock that doesn't have an existing key. You will run into this in the field. It's definitely good knowledge to have on these. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but we'll get you through it. So I went ahead and pulled a Kwikset smart lock deadbolt out, and they come apart a little bit differently once we get the lock out of the door. We take a pick and this little football goalpost shaped retainer we lift up and pull back on. They do tend to be in there pretty good. You got to put a little bit of muscle into it, not too much, and slide that off, and we just drop the actual cylinder out. After that, it's almost like normal for a second here. We're going to remove the E-clip. There we go. And we're going to remove the tailpiece. And I'm not quite sure why they do this, but I've noticed on the smart lock deadbolts, there's an extra washer underneath the E-clip. So we're going to remove that as well. And we're going to look, if we can zoom in a little bit here. There's 5 wafers in this lock. This lock actually runs off wafers instead of pins. We're not even going to be using the pinning kit for this. So I tend to use a small lock pick, but we're going to, while putting pressure on the back of the lock, we're going to push down each one of these wafers and get them to bind. And when they do, the lock will move forward. And usually you'll get about 1 good movement out of it and have to do it again. And every time you do it, there's 1 less wafer because they're getting on the outside of this. Sometimes they'll come back at you, kind of like playing whack-a-mole. Don't get discouraged. It takes a little bit of time to get used to this. Alright, so I got 1 left. Pop that off. And now we're going to take the housing off. And on the inside of the lock, we have a sidebar right here that we're going to remove. Just this little piece of metal. And underneath that is 2 small springs that they tend to stay in there. If they fall out, it's not a big deal. We'll just put them back in. But don't worry about actively trying to take them out. They want to stay where they're put. So we're going to pull the lock apart in half. And if you notice, there's tiny wafers in there instead of pins. And one that actually has fallen out. This is what they look like. So on the one end, we have kind of a saw blade shape. And the other, we have a small indentation. We're going to put this one back in. And those small indentations, we're actually going to take our pick and we're going to line them all up on this little reservoir to where they'll all be flush in a row. Sometimes I'm going to scrape my pick across to make sure it's good and smooth. Then we're going to take this and we're going to put the spring end in first and actually hold the spring down as we put it in. And we're going to keep pressure on it. I know it's hard to see with my fingers there, but we're going to hold it back, keep pressure going backwards on it, and then put the key in. Once we have the key in there, we're going to release the pressure and pull it back. Kind of like before when I said it only takes one time, but with the Kwikset smart lock, I do it 2 or 3 times. Same thing with this, just to make sure it takes. Now it's reset to this key, and we're going to take our sidebar and we're going to drop it back in there. It only goes one way because of the way the shape is on it. And then we're going to take our housing and make sure that the holes for the wafers are facing forward. It spins. And now we have rekeyed the smart lock without a key. So we're going to drop our wafer back on top. Sorry, our washer back on top. Our tailpiece, and put our E-clip back in there. Drop it back into its house. And take this goalpost retainer and just pop it back on. Here, snap back in. And let's check it. All right, we are good to go. Now, next up, I want to show you a tool that Kwikset makes if you don't want to go through this process, which I can't blame you if you don't. It can be kind of painstaking. But Kwikset does make an item called the Kwikset Smart Key Cradle. And I'm going to show you how that works real quick in case anybody might be interested in picking one of those up. Alright guys, so this is the Kwikset Smart Cradle. It is made for if you don't have a key for it, you don't want to have to take it all apart like that. The instructions on it are pretty much hieroglyphics that are not very helpful, so I'm going to walk you through it. What we're going to do is we're going to twist it all the way counterclockwise, and we're going to drop the lock in, and we're going to just twist back just a little bit. We're going to take our Kwikset reset tool, push in, we heard our click. We're going to drop our key in there, and we're going to go back to the starting position and turn our key in there. After that, we turn back the exact opposite, the counterclockwise, and pull the lock out. And we have rekeyed it.